welcome to our broadcast today on what's going on with the Oroville Dam. I'm Steve Dempsey with the Bay Area News Group, and joining me today to give us some insight on what the scene is like there is the editor of the Oroville Mercury-Register, David Little. David,
Hi,
thanks
Steve.
for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, especially under these times, I'm sure it's pretty chaotic still up there. But looks like we got some good news yesterday as a mandatory evacuation was lifted. That came as workers were bringing in boulders to plug a hole that developed, and dam operators were releasing more than 100,000 cubic feet of water per second over the broken spillway. Also, the lake has dropped, I guess, more than 14 feet now. But David, what's the mood up there right now?
Well, there has been a lot of bad guesses throughout this whole process. You know, we were told right before the emergency spillway started flowing, just 24 hours before that the DWR did its calculations and the emergency spillway wouldn't be needed. And 24 hours later, the water was flowing over that kind of saddle dam. So I think people are a little bit distrustful when they told people at the evacuation center in Chico that they could go home to Oroville. Some people didn't go. They said, why would I go down below that dam when they've been wrong so far? So we had a really interesting story in today's newspaper, people expressing those misgivings. And in the last couple of hours here, it started raining again. So I don't think, you know, people are wary, and they should be because of the way things have gone so far.
Well, for one thing, that rain's not supposed to come till tonight, but okay. so much for that. True, even when the mandatory evacuation order was lifted, I mean, it came as a warning that while the mandatory's off, get ready, you might have to leave again.
The lake is down significantly, and it minimizes the potential for that sort of saddle dam above the emergency spillway to give way. And they're continue to work on that today. They've been up there all day, as they have been for the last 3 days, dumping rocks into this chasm that developed and cement to try to shore things up there. But I think there's still enough concern that the lake could rise. They're releasing 100,000 CFS out of that regular spillway to try to get that lake down. But the lake's going to rise. I don't think it'll rise 15 feet and get back to where it's overflowing again. But as I said, we've seen things happen that we haven't seen before. So those calculations could very well be wrong.
Well, also, I guess I've heard reports of up to like a foot of rain is going to be coming your way through these next storms. So that's a lot of water coming down at once. I'm not sure if the area has seen like rains like this before, or, you know, I'm not sure.
We have before. It's just been a while, so we all forget because of the drought, right? But in '97, the river was flowing through Oroville at close to 150,000 CFS. Right now, it's only flowing at 100,000 only. That's the wrong word, but it's flowing at 100,000 CFS instead of 150. So we've seen these types of flows before. Of course, that year it flooded downstream in the Marysville area. It's catastrophic floods. And since then, they've spent time building up those levees from Oroville downstream to where the river runs into the Sacramento River near a place called Verona. They've spent millions of dollars to try to get things in shape for an event like this. They say the river system and the levee system can handle those huge flows. But you know, obviously you don't know until something like this happens. When you talk about the rain that's coming, you're right. It all happens up in the foothills. It doesn't rain that much here on the valley floor, but it happens up in the foothills, and all of that drains downhill right into Lake Oroville. There's 4 different streams that become huge raging rivers that feed Lake Oroville. So that lake can rise in a hurry. I mean, they had close to 200,000 CFS coming into the lake last week. However, they project these storms are going to be a little bit more spread out than the ones last week. So maybe that will help.
That's true. But right now, as it stands, I know because you live in the area, or I'm not sure if you're near, the potential danger or not. But do you personally feel safe right now?
Well, I'm in Chico, and that's where they told people from Oroville to evacuate to. On Sunday, when the evacuation order was called, I was in the foothills of Oroville, and I didn't feel safe then. Trying to ride the wave of cars out of the Feather River corridor was nerve-rattling. And I was certainly glad when I was able to finally get on the other side of the Sacramento River near Colusa, where I knew I was safe again. I can't imagine what those people were going through who lived right in downtown Oroville, because that's real close to the dam and real close to potential catastrophe. But you know where to go if you live in this area. You know where to go to get to high ground, to get away from it. And those people in Oroville, if they were on Montgomery Street in downtown Oroville, they can go uphill and be safe within a mile. And we heard from some people who did that. We heard from a woman who was out riding her bicycle on Sunday when the evacuation order was called, and she couldn't make it home, didn't want to go home, so it would have taken too long, so she just kept riding her bicycle up into the foothills. We heard from a guy who was out jogging. He did the same thing. He just kept jogging higher and higher as high as he could get until he knew he was safe. That's how people reacted then, and that's how people would react if they knew some sort of dam failure was imminent.
Boy, those are some kind of stories, I'll tell you. We got just a reminder for our viewers. We do have Scribble Live going on where you can ask questions through our live chat. And David, I've got a question here. Hopefully you can answer it or do your best. Question is, was maintenance deferred on the main spillway, allowing captivation to create the hole, which started the process of failure on both spillways?
Well, honestly, all I know is what the DWR tells us. Over the years, we have taken photos and ran the photos in our newspaper last week, again, to remind people where there are vehicles, trucks, DWR trucks, we assume, parked on the spillway. At the time, this was 2009. Another time we saw it in 2013. They said this was regular ongoing maintenance. We've tried to reach somebody to find out what that regular ongoing maintenance consists of. They talk about sealing cracks and things like that. I'm not sure I completely buy the answers that we're getting, and we look at the maintenance records and it says what's done. Sometimes it's just a visual inspection. Obviously not enough was done. I don't know, because I'm not an engineer, if you could have foretold what was going to occur right where it was occurring, but it was suspicious to a lot of people in our area because just last summer they saw trucks parked exactly at the spot where the spillway first started to give way. So I think that's a good question, and one that will continue to be asked and hopefully answered.
So we get to leading up to Sunday afternoon. There didn't really seem to be a sense of urgency, even though you have all this water flowing. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, we've seen it before, and there's no sense of urgency as long as that spillway, the regular concrete spillway, is working. The regular concrete spillway, we're told, can handle 150,000 CFS of water going down it, 200,000 CFS of water going down it. But when the spillway breaks and there's no other way to get water out of the lake, then you're in trouble, and that's what happened. they call this other part of the spillway the emergency spillway, and that's a misnomer. It's not a structure. Okay, it's a hill. It's a ravine. It's like if you fill up your bathtub too high and you get into it and the water spills all over the floor, and then you call your floor of your bathroom the emergency spillway. That's exactly what was going on there. The water overflowed. It overflowed into a ravine. That ravine eroded. In our paper, in an editorial, we likened it to hydraulic mining, which of course the state outlawed in the 1870s because it does untold environmental damage. We said, unfortunately, that the day this occurred, that's what's going to happen if that lake overflows and the emergency spillway is used. That the state would be doing hydraulic mining on the hills of next to the dam. And you should see the scar that left. The flow was, they estimated it between 6,000 and 12,000 CFS, which is basically the equivalent of the Sacramento River's flow in our area during the middle of the summer. It's a good flow. I mean, you run jet boats up and down the river of this flow, and that was all flowing down a mountainside that was rocks and dirt and trees. And of course, that water scours the hillside down to the bedrock, and that hole developed in the bedrock, and the chasm got a lot deeper than anybody suspected, and that's what caused the instability of the emergency spillway area. But it's not an emergency spillway. It's just a place where the lake overflows into.
Well, I guess Sunday afternoon it was, because of the way things were going down. I guess someone out there, they're not aware how fast things can change when you're dealing with rising water and potential floods.
You know, when there's 200,000 CFS coming into the lake, that's a lot of water. And if none of the water is being released, that lake can go up in a hurry. It doesn't happen very often because there's always water being released through that Hyatt powerhouse, which is inside the dam and on the outside of the bottom of the dam. But when you completely shut that spigot off and no water is coming out, then there's a lot of water, and there's a lot of water coming in. That lake can rise pretty quickly.
Well, even so, don't you think that maybe there should have been some planning, an anticipation of something like this happening?
Oh yes, there should have been. In fact, the relicensing process, Oroville Dam was completed now 49 years ago, and dams need to get relicensed by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The relicensing fight has been going on for 15 years. During the relicensing process, people can express misgivings about the way things are going. For example, our county has said this lake costs us more in lost property taxes and public safety and maintenance and upkeep and roads and everything else. It costs us more than we are getting in return from the state. So they had concerns. But there were also some groups, fishing and environmental groups, that said this emergency structure is inadequate and you need to line that ravine with some sort of concrete or it will erode during a catastrophic event. It's easy if you're involved on the state side of that process to say, oh, there won't be a catastrophic event. There hasn't been in 49 years. Why should we worry about it now? And look what happens. So you always have to be ready for that catastrophic event, obviously.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the evacuation process. In your opinion, how did that go?
I was amazed at how well it went. Like I said, I was in the middle of it. Went down to Marysville. I was in the hills outside of Oroville. I did not want to go on Highway 70 and go north back to Chico because I knew it would be gridlock, and it was. The highway was stopped. It's a 2-lane highway, 2 lanes in each direction, going up to Chico. I did not want to get on Highway 99, which is still in the floodplain. So I had to go all the way out to Highway 20 through Yuba City and Marysville, and then to the other side of the Sacramento River to Colusa, and then up that way. It's a trip that took me 35 minutes in the morning, took me about 3 hours in the afternoon. But everybody was well mannered. I didn't see any road rage incidents. I didn't see anybody cutting people off in traffic. In fact, I saw people stopping to let people in. I saw people towing horse trailers and boats and RVs and just trying their best to get all their stuff out of town. I really was thankfully on the leading edge of the evacuation. Eventually, it became a parking lot, all roads into and out of places like Marysville, Yuba City, Oroville. It was a mess getting out of there. If that wall above the emergency spillway had given way right then, there would have been a lot of people in danger because there was nowhere for them to go. Fortunately, it held up and people were able to get to the evacuation areas. But it did not go well, but I didn't see anybody panicking. It could have been a lot worse.
Do you think maybe officials were a little slow on the draw though? Because like you just said, if things would have gave way, it would have been a very bad situation out there.
It's hard to say. I mean, when you're talking about evacuating 180,000 people and everybody gets the message at the same time, it's like everybody leaving two 49ers games and trying to get on the same 2-lane road to get out of the stadium. It's just gonna be a parking lot for a while, and that's what it was. In a sudden situation like this, I don't know that the public safety officials could have done any better. I do know that smart people who live around here, as I said earlier, know how to go uphill, and they did. They got out of harm's way rather than parking next to the river and waiting for the wall of water.
I think you kind of alluded a little bit what went on in 2005 when the question came up as far as the support of the spillway. I guess state officials, they rejected the concerns about the spillway. What were they thinking back then?
Well, expense, that's a huge part of it. It costs a lot of money, and who pays for Oroville Dam? Well, it's a state facility. Water users downstream help pay for it, but it's a cash cow. It provides this water, which is a more expensive commodity every year. It provides hydropower, which is another expensive commodity. I don't know why they wouldn't spend a few extra $100 million to try to do this the right way. Other than, as we said in an editorial today, there's the old oil filter commercial, you can pay me now or pay me later. Well, no one wants to pay you now. They'll all wait until they have to pay you later. Now the expense of this is just going to be tremendous. They're talking 100 million for just the regular spillway. There's no way it's going to be 100 million. They've already spent 100 million up there hauling rocks with helicopters and big tractors. But what's funny is, as they do these emergency repairs, and they've been working on them really since before the emergency spillway was needed last week, they're spending a lot of money up there right now, a lot of money. And why couldn't they have done that 15 years ago? It was because nobody in power had the foresight to say we should do this now rather than later. It's a real shame.
That's true, because I think weren't we talking about pretty much putting a stretch of concrete to help support the spillway? I think that was the big thing there. They
two things. One, this big, huge ravine developed where the water takes the path of least resistance, which is the lower part of the ravine, and it just carved out a huge hole in that ravine. So they had to fill that up with rocks. They filled that up with rocks and concrete, and then it looks to us like they are pouring cement from the face of the emergency dam, this kind of saddle dam, down the emergency spillway and farther down the hill. None of that was there before. The only thing below that emergency wall, which is a 20-foot wall, was a road where you could drive your boat across the dam and down that road underneath the lip of the emergency dam and up to a launch ramp on the other side to launch your boat. There was no, you look at it, no one would say this looks like an emergency spillway. It was, as I said before, just dirt. Now they're turning it into a true emergency spillway, at least the top part. Down below, there's this damage. This flood went through there, and I have no clue what they're going to do with that, but it's never going to look the same. They might as well at this point, since it's carved down to bedrock on that ravine all the way down to the Feather River below. They might as well line it like a big ditch so that if this does happen again, then they already have a true emergency spillway there. That will cost another $100 million, but it'll be well worth it.
Well, I guess they kind of learned a lesson on that, as far as, yeah, it's going to be a lot of money, but I would think that, and I wonder if you agree that there's going to be plans, maybe when all the storms go through, and I'm sure there's going to be plans, you think, to do an overall analysis of the dam and make it stronger?
Well, again, it's not the dam, but the spillway.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, and we have to be careful with that because a lot of people, there have been a lot of news outlets that have said the dam is in danger or the dam has a hole in it, but it's not the dam. The dam is quite a ways away from where the spillways are by design. They don't want water going up uncontrolled over the dam because it's an earthen structure, the tallest dam in the United States, but it's made out of earth. And if that earth erodes at the dam, then the whole dam gives way. You're in a lot of trouble. On this emergency spillway side, there's a 20-foot concrete wall. If that 20-foot wall gives way, eventually 20 feet of the lake drains down and the water is not draining out of that part of the lake anymore. Not as big a deal as if the dam went down, right?
Right.
So I'm sorry, I just went off on a big tangent about the difference between the dam and the spillway, but what was the question again?
No, that's okay. No, that's quite all right. I guess when the storms go through and the weather gets better, do you think there'll be plans to strengthen the spillway even more than what they're trying to do right now?
Yeah, so there's two huge projects they have to do. One is to rebuild that regular spillway, which the erosion is worse every day because there's 100,000 CFS of water going down that spillway, and it has a big hole in the middle, a big gap in the middle, and that gap's getting bigger. And instead of going down the bottom half of that spillway, it is diverting off to the side and just fanning out, mushrooming out to where instead of going down a chute, the chute at the bottom is like a big fantail, like a big alluvial fan, and it's rapidly becoming larger and larger and larger and depositing a bunch of dirt and debris down in the river below. So that will be a huge project. And obviously, you're right, they have to look at a way to strengthen this 50-year-old structure so that it doesn't have any soft spots in it like it did before. I'm sure they will use the same chute, but they will just build the chute differently, anchor it differently, do a lot of things differently. But they'll do the structure right this time. And then there's the other issue farther to the north is of this emergency spillway that they will have to make into a true structure of some kind rather than just a dirt ravine, and have an escape chute there for water in emergencies like these. Again, if the regular spillway works right, they don't need that emergency spillway ever. But as we've proven here, 50 years from now, that rebuilt spillway may fail, and they might need something like this emergency spillway. So they should spend the money to do it right. Will they? That's a good question. The beautiful part about this whole episode is that people are finally paying attention. Little old Oroville is on the map for all the wrong reasons, and with people like Bay Area newspapers and national media outlets raising these questions of why something wasn't done before, that means there's a greater likelihood that something will get done rather than just the Chico Enterprise Record and Oroville Mercury-Register raising concerns about it. Kind of a quiet voice in the wilderness, but when other voices join and politicians start paying attention, and Donald Trump and Jerry Brown know where Oroville is, all of a sudden, yeah, maybe something will get done.
That's true. Well, David, I know you're busy, and we're going to end it on that note. I appreciate your time, and good luck to you and the residents up there in Oroville, and all those who are near the Feather River. And hopefully things will won't be as bad as it was last weekend, and we'll look forward to a nice spring.
Well, thanks, Stephen. Thanks for the coverage. Bay Area News Group's done a great job of covering this as well, and I hope you keep watching.
All right, David Little, thank you very much, and thanks for joining our broadcast.
Thank you.